Hello, people of the tubes. Welcome to GameSquid. Today I have an interview with Andre from a studio that made The Last Encounter. Hello, Andre.
Hello there.
So, The Last Encounter is probably the best game ever that I've gotten a free key for. So that's crazy.
Ooh,
Really.
that's a big compliment. Yeah, thank you for it.
Well, I'm on this Keymailer website, but there's a bunch of bad games, but a few good ones. And yeah, The Last Encounter is a roguelike space game, just like that one game I'm working on that I haven't disclosed yet, and it looks pretty good. What are your influences? What kind of roguelike games have you played that inspired you to make this?
Mm, well, the story behind Last Encounter was one, I guess, of iteration. Like many games are made. I think the first idea or the big idea was to have the inspiration was big galactic, fights, like with big challenges and like majestic fights. And one of the first GDDs that we did, or like overlooking the whole project, what we had in mind was maybe even going into RPG, like with mining, with collecting different resources, discovering different civilizations, and it got to a point where we realized that it was too big for us, like a too big scope to do. So we wanted to keep kind of that initial motivation of big space fights, but we're looking for how can we get it into a smaller scope. And then one of the ideas was to do it in twin stick action roguelike kind of setting or mechanic. And that's where we started to let's say, although most of us played some roguelikes before, that's where we took a more detailed look on what was available and what was good. And with every title that we do is since I mean we do kind of different titles, we jump from one genre to a different genre, but we always want to look at what's been done and try to add something to it, like a spin. So from the roguelikes, I think we played it all, like from Rogue to Isaac to Enter the Gungeon to Nuclear Throne, and then the latest ones like Cryptarch and a lot of stuff where we try to kind of decipher on one hand what's the things that we can keep that are really good, but on the other hand what do we have to change since we're changing the setting, going to like an open space, not confined rooms and stuff like that. But I would say that the a lot of the popular roguelikes were a big influence and inspiration for Last Encounter as well.
Oh yeah, I guess you always have ambitions that are way too large. I have that too. I always end up making games that are just way larger than they should be, and then it's unsustainable. So it's good that you managed to simplify it so it didn't have all of those things. But then it's pretty interesting how you go into these different levels. And the first time exploring them was pretty neat because they're distinctly different. They have different colors, different enemies. I really like the level design altogether. Got got a lot of cool stuff going on.
There's also an interesting story behind how we got to the current layout of the levels, since we're kind of based in space, or the game is played out in space. It was a big challenge for us. How can we transform the usual game space of the genre, which is usually like dungeon crawling or closed rooms, closed off little spaces? How can we transfer that to open space so that we don't break the immersion or the theme of the game? So when we first tried it with just having like big galaxies with big sectors where you can just fly into any direction, it it seemed too open, and you would kind of get lost and need to do a lot of backtracking and traverse. So we did a lot of iterations on how to manage the space that you can feel like you know where you are in the galaxy and how fast to jump somewhere else, and to still have a sense of navigation and where you are in that galaxy. So we took really a couple of iterations to get to where it is now.
So did you ever have one where you had like rooms and they would have a portal to the other room?
We try. I don't think we ever did it with the portals, like from room to room. It seemed for us we try to stay away from the concept of rooms because it just felt like it wasn't, immersed into space. That was conflicting with theme. Like if we told you, yeah, you're in space, you're in a galaxy, but you're basically closed off in a little room, that it was kind of breaking the theme of the game. But yeah, I mean, it's a good question of if a couple more portals or wormholes between the sectors currently would open up a different feel of how the space works to players.
It's very odd because it's just you have to use the map screen to get around. It was pretty flow breaking at first. I guess I got used to it, but it's an odd concept. You just got these rooms that are floating in space and you travel between them by teleporting. But then you have this one place where you enter the room and no choice that you want to enter it from another side. It's, I guess, interesting that these are the limitations that you came up with.
I would say, it's always, and that's why I think it's very interesting when you suggest the portals, different rooms that would kind of let you traverse the sectors without going to the map and doing a space jump and maybe not having that immersion broken. It's interesting to me how, when different designers or programmers or game designers come together, game developers, and then look at a concept or a set of problems, and then take it from another perspective. It's always we were always very open to feedback, and it was like from all of the set of problems that we had, we from playtesting we figured like this was the best solution or had the least problems. But then again, when you have another look of eyes at it, like you do, and then you have a suggestion, it's always interesting to me how a concept can be made better or improved more elegantly. That's kind of iteration, and and maybe giving up on a bit of scope or giving up on a bit of meat and bone to have a better kind of core loop and core gameplay. I love that process.
Well, I don't think you'd have to give up on anything, just adding the portal so it's connected, and that way you can also backtrack to rooms that you've already been to just to see that they're actually still there, because right now you just visit every area once and then you have no continuity about what's going to continue with these levels. You would still have the teleportation, so it would make sense to keep it the same way, but if you wanted to, you could also just move around the rooms without having to open the map screen.
Yeah, I think it's a really good suggestion, and from where we are and how things work in the project, I think it would be really a small effort to try and add it. So we'll definitely consider it.
Well, thank you. I thought it might take more effort, but I guess it's good if it doesn't. So are you the programmer or designer? What's your role in the game?
My role is it's kind of you know how in small teams people have to do different types of wear different kinds of hats. So I would say a long time ago when we were starting out, then I did more of programming or more of hands-on in creating. But now, since kind of it was necessary for somebody to move into different space, I was more into doing, I don't know, when we went to conventions, doing the business development and talking to potential publishers and doing more communication and that stuff, and still design. The least today that I do is something that's connected to code.
So did you hire a different programmer, or is there just, or have you just done all of the programming already?
Oh no, I mean in Exordium Games, we're a team of 13, so we have 5 guys who are committed to programming.
Oh wow, that's a larger team than I expected.
Yeah.
Well, it makes sense. There's a lot of very polished assets, so it's definitely more of a high-level indie game that's almost closer to AAA.
Oh,
Well, I
I
mean
regard it
that's
as a compliment. Thank you.
well, I mean the AAA title isn't a massive compliment these days, but it definitely looks more professional, I guess. So that's good.
But that's always a question, if that's good or not in terms of how the audience perceives it, because there was a lot. If you look at a lot of roguelikes, they kind of try to hit the nostalgia with the retro approach or graphics that go in a certain direction, and it's always a question of we want it, as I told you, when we take a game we kind of look at what's been done and how can we add to that concept, and then it's always a question of would it be more attractive if it was done in pixel art, or would it be, so it's always kind of those, did is this style the one that is better, or is it just our signature, or is it kind of just asking yourself those questions and reflecting, I guess.
I never was one for pixel art, so I definitely appreciate the art design it is. I especially like the lava monsters later on. They seem so smooth and round. I
Yeah,
love the animation.
yeah.
It's, I guess there's the question if people would be more interested in it if it looked more indie. I wonder if the indie sympathies would have been more interested in it if it didn't look so well made. But then who knows?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's always a question of that part of where you try to think of the audience and how your game is gonna be appealing among the vast sea of other interesting titles that are coming out. So it's just something that we kind of reflect on. But I think that if you look at the titles that we did so far before Last Encounter, that we really jumped like big leaps or turned for 180 degrees from to different art styles and different genres. So we didn't kind of build upon one strength. We tried to explore different things, and I think our artists really did a great job in being able to be so flexible for different art styles. And I think we liked the challenge to also approach a new genre and try to decipher what makes that type of game design great.
I think there's actually a really large lack of roguelike games that are actually well polished and play well.
Mm.
I can only think of a handful, and most of them I don't even like. I used to be in. I mean, I played Enter the Gungeon, but then it just turned out to be so frustrating. And I mean, this is. I guess it's hard to tell how the last encounter will end up with the final patches,
Mm.
but I think it's got the potential of being pretty good.
Again, thank you, thank you for the compliments. It's always nice to hear, a kind word about stuff that you put a lot of effort into. So I think, I guess any author or any creator likes to be understood, or to kind of have the feeling that what they were creating is well accepted. And yeah, I think with roguelikes, it's a question of challenge, probably, also when you mention frustration, and then it's a question of where is the line between having fun and being a big challenge, so that you don't create too much frustration. And I guess the line moves depending on the genre that you're doing, or but it's definitely a challenge too. And we did a lot of play testing and went to shows to exhibit it to different types of players. So we try to tweak the amount of frustration that you have while playing it. And balancing also is kind of a big challenge, or the biggest one that I'd say that we had so far on our titles, because when you have so much not random elements, but elements that are interchangeable, like with Last Encounter, you can have different pilots, different ships, then the different components, different passive abilities, different upgrades, and you have the procedural generation. So there's like thousands of permutations that can happen, and you still want to manage them to have a difficulty curve that appeals to players and motivates them, but not frustrates them. And I think that was one of the biggest challenges for us was, and still is, balancing Last Encounter.
Yeah, so Last Encounter basically has a very interesting weapon system, which is close to that game that I'm working on,
Hmm.
interestingly. But you've simplified it in a way that you can only have three of those elements, and then every one of those elements is in a specific slot. So you have the bullets, five different bullets, and you have, I don't know, like 10 different ways of shooting, and then there's an additional effect. But then it's very odd the way it works, because you end up having these permanent upgrades. I mean, at least you have, if you manage to buy an upgrade for a run, then all the other side rates for that upgrade are eventually not going to be that useful to you. And there's a lot of times that you go to shops and they have an item that already have or that you don't want. And a lot of the times the stuff I find isn't really useful to me, and
Mm.
there's still a lot of issues that I have with the game. A lot of, I guess, design decisions that are odd to me at the moment.
No, I mean, firstly, I'm always thankful when people are honest enough to pinpoint, to what they think is where's room for improvement. So that's
That's
good. Yeah, and I think it's important to have those kind of discussions.
oh good. Well, I think there's a big problem here actually, because if you put out a game, and I guess there's some people that play it, they're not gonna tell you what's wrong with it. They're just gonna try to stroke your ego and say it's great, and
Mm.
then when even when someone brings it up, then they're gonna tell him, no, you just don't use the broken weapon systems.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy that at least some of the players on the Discord channel, as yourself, and on the Steam discussions are taking the time to decipher what they think is the problem, and it's good. And we're kind of not trying to close our eyes to it. And I agree with you that currently all of the combinations that you can do either sometimes don't make sense, or something is, you could say in those terms, broken, that it gives you something that's overpowerful, or some changes that don't work very well. And this is something definitely that we keep having a look on and changing the balance. And I mean, it's a challenge of the system that we did that we didn't see before. So I guess every time you want to try to do something like that has a certain amount of I don't know if it's innovation or change to it, that it means that some unpredictable things with it are going to happen. And I mean, the most honest answer I can give is, yeah, we're aware of it, and we will definitely try to keep kind of tweaking both the components and the upgrades to try to get to a curve that makes more sense. There's a design challenge usually in game design where they tell you like it's not good to give players calculations but choices. That when you give them something that is a calculation where they can just, if you add the math together, it's, oh yeah, no, this is better because it gives you so and so much something more, and it's because of it it's better than the other one. Then it's not so much of a choice, whereas choices should be, having two or more things that the player can choose, which don't add up to something better, but are
Oh
more kind
no.
of connected to your play style. And I don't know if that's possible with the system that we have to do it in that way. But we also feel like if we only give, components, upgrades, and stuff to players which don't have any downsides, if it's only, getting better and better and better, we feel like then we're taking away a little bit of the choice or the experimentation with different stuff. So it's a balancing of those two, not just to give you a linear experience. Oh yeah, I'm just boosting it up, getting better, but kind of maybe figuring out some combinations that you like, maybe having certain combos that work better than others. But I'm totally open to it still being, something that can be made better and might have a big impact on how Last Encounter plays.
Oh man, I gotta tell you this. It's a lot with the balance that I think is an issue.
Hmm.
Sorry about that.
No, no, no. I'm thankful that you're mentioning it.
So basically, you start out, and then all of the upgrades that you get are gonna be temporary until you go back to the base when you've died or when you've completed the game. I'm not even sure if it's possible to complete the game on the first run, by the way.
Hmm.
Is it?
You mean by having like a single bullet and
Yeah.
no upgraded components? That would be really, really tough. That would be really tough.
I mean, is it possible? I don't know. I guess it could be, but
Mathematically, it's possible because the amount of upgrades that you get for your fire rate and your health that are randomly dropped
oh,
in the
but that's
galaxies when
still
you
luck
progress.
then.
That's luck, but it makes your weapon strong enough to be able to penetrate the strongest shields, but you would have to be maneuvering like crazy and being like really knowing how every enemy behaves and
Yeah,
having
there's
a lot
another
of
math
precision. Yeah.
that's required there. Is it possible to beat the final boss without taking damage, for example? Because it seems that it's just the first time I got to it, it was just so intense, and it was just constantly shooting, and I did like no damage to it, and I think I actually had good weapons then. I don't know how it would be without good weapons. Would it take like 2 hours?
Yeah, that was definitely a question regarding like the duration of the little bosses and the final boss, and I guess that there's also like work to do, and
Did
because we
did you
yeah.
make them squishy already? Because like the next time I tried, I beat them easier, but I also had OP weapons, so I'm not sure. But it seemed like they died in like, I don't know, like 5 seconds. So
Yeah, so
it seems
there
that
are there are two problems at two sides in this situation. So the one is like how they're working in terms of health and how much damage you need to do to them,
oh
and on the
that's
other side of the problem is like how strong do we let you get? So it's when we tweak one thing, then the other one, if we tweak both things at the
there's
same
actually
time,
one
then it's hard to
solution
see the
for
change.
that
Yeah.
that might be interesting to you regardless. How about you deal more damage the longer the fight goes? So if it goes for half an hour, you deal double damage.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting mechanic. Let me write that down.
I mean that's one way of doing it, I suppose. But I guess so. Did you nerf that boss then? Because it seems like it died
Yeah, yeah, we
faster.
changed we changed the bosses in the updates. Yeah. I mean,
So
we change a lot of the balance every update we do.
oh, okay. Well, that's good. Then I guess I played it early on, and then when I played it today, it didn't have as many of the issues. But then it had a whole different issues. Like half the weapons didn't work
Mm,
in that last update. But I'm sure that's gonna be fixed in like one or 2 days, right?
yeah, that will definitely not wait for the weekly update.
I used to when I made Binding of Isaac, I used to break the game in such terrible ways. Oh my god! And then I had to make an update the next day. It was terrible.
Yeah, it's when you wanna when I mean there was a great meme or like a cartoon about it on the internet on programming and mending bugs where they had like pipes, a lot of pipes, and there was only from one pipe there was like a little water drops were falling, and then they closed that space, but then on the other pipe a leak began to, and then they closed that space, and then another pipe broke completely. So sometimes, when you fix a little thing, then other things keep popping up. So right when you think, oh, excellent, we're done with this thing, then 10 other things pop up. So yeah, but I mean, we're thankful that it gets reported, the things that maybe we don't get to test so quickly, so that we can get to it as fast as we can.
Oh man, there's just so many things in this game. It's crazy. So, which weapons do you prefer the most?
I prefer the bullet. I prefer the bullet because
Wow, the
I
bullet.
would say we try to have, different DPS depending on the weapon type and fire speed, like the fire rate of it. So you have a certain amount of damage on the projectile, and then you have the fire rate, and then you have like is it spread or no spread. So I look at it as DPS over a certain angle, and the bullet for me seems to be kind of the best. We also in the last update changed. what we
Wait, is,
wanted to have,
is
but then it got bugged, was when you had like the submachine component or the Gatling gun component, that when you start shooting, that it should always be, the spread should be very narrow towards your crosshair, but the longer you hold it down, the spread is going to get bigger. So we wanted to have it like a realistic, when you do a single shot, it's going to be straight into the crosshair. So I like, weapons that are precise in short bursts and then a lot of movement. That would be my preferred way of playing it.
so do you actually play and beat the boss that way?
The boss. Well, when we tried to balance the stages and the bosses, then since we have to put the weapon components in different galaxies where you unlock them as a progression kind of way. So mostly when we test the difficulty of certain galaxies, we test it with the set of components from that galaxy. So the boss would be, or the last boss would be easiest, and is tested by having rockets or having stronger weapons than
So
just
you
the bullet type.
don't prefer the bullets after all, then?
I mean,
If
I
the
prefer
rockets
the
are gonna be
bullet.
necessary to beat the
If
boss.
if if you ask me for the final boss, then I
Yeah,
would have to have a stronger weapon, definitely. But for but getting to the boss is like a long.
but that's actually
Yeah.
quite terrible because you're not gonna find the rocket. The only way you're gonna get the rocket is if you buy it at the start. And other stuff
Yeah.
like that, like if you want Jagged, which is the most OP thing ever, you can only get that at the start. It took me like 30 games. I only found it once in the wild.
Oh, you think that the concept that you have to first discover something and then build it up to be able to use it isn't that it's too frustrating?
No, the thing well, maybe that too, but the thing is that you can buy an upgrade at the start, and the start shop is the best shop in the game. So if you want your upgrade, you're gonna get it at the start,
Hmm.
because in the levels the shops are gonna be useless. They're gonna have only terrible things in them. That are,
That might be another issue with the logic of how the shops work, because we wanted to do, or what we tried to do with it, is that they're kind of aware of what you have and what you don't have, and they shouldn't always give you, five things where there's again no choice, but it's all like, oh yeah, I need all those five, and then I'll be definitely much stronger. So we wanted to keep that kind of randomness, but it is kind of aware of what you've been playing so far. But from your comments, I'd say that we're still not there.
well, sorry about that.
I hope you don't have like a big list next to you of more issues you're gonna throw at me.
I'm sorry.
But I like your approach. Like, I really like the game. I really like how it's polished, and then you go deeper and deeper. No, no, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah,
I do have a pretty long list, but it's I guess some of what we can do in private if it's a bit too
No, it
annoying
isn't. It isn't.
to.
I wanna go through it, because I think, and most of the stuff that you mention is stuff that Less Encounter enables us to improve quickly, because it's more of a balancing issue and distribution of upgrading and progression issue, which isn't, it's not like making new content. It's more like playing with the things that you have to create a more streamlined and less frustrating experience. So, yeah, I appreciate the feedback.
Well, that's good. Have you played Magica?
Yes, but a little bit, not too much.
It's it's very similar in a way, because in Magica you can have, I guess there's like 8 elements, so you can have rock and fire and I don't know what else, like another damage type, and then it
Mm,
shoots a fireball. But if you have just fire, it sprays fire. But then if you have just a laser, it shoots just a laser, and it's kind of like that. But then
mm.
in this system, you can't interchange it because everything is in a certain slot.
Yeah, it's everything. You mean compared to Last Encounter, or everything is in a slot in Magica?
No, in Magica you can have 10 rock. You can have 5 times rock, and then you just throw a big rock. It's a very interesting system. But in this, you've
Mm,
got like
in Magica, for me, it felt when I was playing, like there was doing that you had to do a lot of setting up to do something. but maybe I didn't play it enough. So, and I mean, yeah, we play that with different types of ideas how we would do the component system. One of the constraints that we put in ourselves was that we didn't want to have, only certain types of augmentations. That we'd say, let's say, if you have the bullet, you can only put this, and this on it, and the rest of the stuff is useless for you. So we wanted to be
So
able
you
to
did want the rest of the stuff to be useless. Oh no.
we wanted you to be able to combine anything you want and see how it works, not to kind of constrain you. But on the other hand, then it's a challenge to have all those combinations make something that, on the one hand, makes sense, and on the other hand, now that's a question where some players tell us, like, I don't like that when I combine these three components, that the result is worse. And then for us, it's a big question of, but shouldn't it be that way that some combinations are better than other combinations instead of, each combination
Well, of
being
course, but
great? Yeah.
the thing is that they're like abysmally bad, some of them, and then I guess there's only like a handful that are really OP. Like if you have jagged, that makes it so that your bullet shoots out more bullets on its way. But then
Mm.
if you have rocket, it means that the bullets that it shoots out also deal splash damage and they explode pretty quickly. And therefore you just have basically an infinite damage rocket if you aim it the right way. Stuff like that, for example, needs to be nerfed a lot. And then you got a similar concept with flak, which is it makes your bullets explode into 8 bullets, but then the bullets are also rockets. The rockets go this time they go further and they don't explode right away.
Mhm.
So it's not as OP, but it's kind of a lot of screen spam, and there's just a few things like that that are.
With one of the latest things that we added a system where, okay, the basic system was you have three components, and then from a programmer's perspective, how it was done is that you simply had modifiers or things that you add to the stats. So that, yeah, you would have a rocket, then times 6, then times 8, and you would have that type of damage output. And this is something that gets scaled too quickly. So if you have, like, a bullet with two components that give just fire rate and double bullets, the basic bullet is scaled, or your DPS maybe 5 times. But when we use rocket, jagged, and flak in the old system, it would get multiplied with like 50. So this scale of multiplication of possible damage and DPS is currently too big. So with the latest thing that we did on changes in the system is that for certain combinations of components, we can then change the modifiers in a way that, yes, you can still have jagged flak rockets, but now we have the option to kind of change the damage output on it in a custom way, so that we can have a more narrow or not so exponential growth of damage, so that you can have the effect that you're hoping for, but it's not going to be doing the same damage output or damage output times 50. And this is now something that we have to again put in a more narrow space in terms of damage, so that the least amount of damage that you do with, let's say, just a laser, and the most amount of damage that you do with the combination that you said are not so extremely off, or that we have to tweak how the galaxies and the enemies behave to kind of still give you a challenge, not to be, as you say, screen spamming and then just clearing everything without any difficulty.
Oh yeah.
But I feel like most of the things I mean, we started with the when you said with the map and the immersion, but I feel like most of the other stuff is that you feel needs improvement is actually really balancing, mostly balancing.
Yeah, that stuff's pretty easy. I mean, you just say if it's a rocket and the flak deals less damage, or if or the jagged deals less damage. I mean, that's probably like one line of code, but I guess yeah, it's real simple. I think for the laser, for example, you should have an additional effect because to me it seems that the laser is pretty much the worst, right?
And that's very interesting to talk about the laser. When you look at the basic five bullet types that you can do, like the rocket, the laser, the shotgun shell, the bullet, and the charger. When you look at their basic DPS, they're not a wide range. So they go from, let's say, 30 to 50 DPS. But so, and we thought that this, in how we tested it, worked
Well,
pretty well. There
except
might
for
be one thing. Yeah, please.
the splash damage of the rocket is the obvious problem because it works too well, and therefore the rocket is like 3 times as good as the laser.
Yeah, I'll give you that, but just to come a second back to the laser. So when we test it, if I test how long I need to kill certain enemies with the laser compared to, let's say, the shell or the bullet or the rocket, time frame that I need is pretty similar. But I guess it comes down to accuracy because the laser needs to be, you have to really pinpoint it down on the enemy to do damage over time and to kill it as fast as you would with the bullet. But if players are, let's say, if you are on a controller, and then when you do a bullet, you have to be precise only once. But when you use a laser, you have to be precise through the whole time that you're doing damage. So I guess this type of precision on the controller might be making the laser look bad, and where we have to look into maybe just upping the DPS. But then again, if you switch to the mouse and keyboard and you are precise, the laser is going to be really, really strong.
Didn't you say it was still gonna be weaker?
Yeah, but if we up the DPS to have a
Yeah,
better
well,
experience on the controller to kind of to let you be less accurate but do
I
the same
use I
damage.
use mouse and keyboard, so that's all I know. And the thing is that the laser also has another big drawback, which is the fact that you need to be visible to the enemy the entire time. You can't just shoot off a rocket and be gone. So the laser clearly should be one of the more powerful ones. And I have a solution for that. I would think that the way it should work is that there's a special debuff that the laser applies that makes the enemies heated up. So if you point the laser at them longer, they take more damage. That would be one suggestion I would have.
Let's write down all of your suggestions, and then for the next update, we'll name it the Florian update.
Right. Yeah, I hope I'm not coming off as condescending here, but I
No,
guess
you're
it's just-
definitely not. I mean, and I enjoy this type of talks. You know, it's nice to be able to pinpoint issues and have, as I said, different eyes. You know, on a problem and different experiences, and coming to a better solution. It makes me happy.
Oh, it's good that I can help. Oh man. So, to me, I prefer the shotguns and the rockets. I don't know what exactly does the charge do. I never used it much because it just seemed more annoying and didn't seem like it had anything additional other than just being annoying, which is the same way I felt about the laser.
Mm.
Does the charge deal more damage if it's fully charged than the rocket?
Yeah, I would say that when you look at, if you look at default weapons on a graph in terms of how much, it's always between fire rate and how much damage one projectile does compared to how much one projectile damage does. So DPS output is kind of the when you put those two things together, and then charge would be something as when you put the sniper component on. So you will lose your rate of fire, but you will be able to one-shot enemies with charge.
Yeah, it's funny you would say that because the sniper component being broken, this current update made it so that it had no downside and just dealt double damage. So I just been firing really powerful rockets. I wonder if the sniper and the rockets are still viable, because previously they used to be really long fire rate, but right now they're broken obviously, and they're OP.
It seems like in the update that we did yesterday, we broke half the components. we were doing our best to make the performance better, you know, in terms of how collisions are calculated and what we do on the projectiles. But it seems that we didn't test enough.
Well, it shouldn't be too hard to fix. It's just funny that I got these runs that were relatively easy now.
But it's what do you think about you know doing different stuff in terms of when there's an update? Do you think that it would make sense to have like, events on it where weapons either behave differently or you get them differently so that you can just, have a different experience with how you play with them? Do you think there's a fun factor involved with what the weapon
Oh man.
combinations do?
Well, the thing is that that's basically how it should be all the time. That
Mm.
it basically is that there should be. It should give you a different combination every time instead of just you buying the ones that you like, and then you're not gonna find anything useful throughout the run except for stat upgrades.
Mm.
What did you have in mind? What would be different?
We were, well, when we test out the stuff, you can obviously do whatever combination of weapon you want to do, and then we put on different combinations and test it in different galaxies and different enemies to see how big of a challenge it is depending on what you already have unlocked or don't have unlocked. But if we could, let players have some of those tools to be able to combine stuff and test it out without having to unlock it first or spend money to research it first, we might come to some, solutions or ideas and have different ideas quicker than we can have it on our own.
So I guess it would just give you a random upgrade because of this specific up patch. I mean, randomly selected by you.
I mean, it could give you like the option that you can that you don't have to spend money to either research a component or to find a component, but you can just pick up any component you want and kind of have fun with it and see which ones you like best. But I don't know if that's already like happened even without the tools, that you found something that's best for you and you're gonna keep using it, and if that best thing for you is also the best thing for other players. So that's a big question.
I wonder how different the playstyles could be in this. I mean, right now I guess it's all just rocket meta, but I wonder how different it is. You had these trailers where you had like a laser that was firing in a sinus wave, and then it was also shotgun,
Mm.
and now all I play is just rockets. I wonder if anyone actually plays with the lasers in the
That's
current
that's a
meta.
very interesting thing you say, that it might, if players tend to do the most optimal strategy to have the least kind of maybe we should internally test it, with okay, I'm not saying like removing the rockets completely, but testing it with
Oh no.
yeah, testing it to give back the challenge, because if there's any OP combination in the game and you find it, you basically stop having any challenge in the game. You
Well,
just, yeah,
it's simple. You just do the single set with the flak and the jagged, so that the
yeah,
rockets don't those small rockets don't deal as much damage because they have AoE, so they'll hit everything that's in that area.
exactly. Or maybe we should change. What do you think about changing Jagged in a way that it's not duplicating the thing that you have, but it's making the weakest projectile. So you would be making more damage, and it would still be the mechanic of Jagged, but you would not be having, the best weapon times 8, but you would be having your weapon and the least strongest times 8.
Well, so does it shoot lasers or bullets?
Yeah, it might shoot bullets instead of, rockets and shells.
I think you would just specifically. I guess the shells as well, huh? Nah, the shells are fine because they don't deal splash damage. It's just the splash damage from the rockets,
Yeah,
because that means that it's gonna hit everything. Because if it splits into bullets, the bullets are gonna miss, but the rockets aren't gonna miss because they explode
yeah,
on
yeah,
the
exactly,
spot.
exactly. Yeah. So the rockets are like a clearing. You really clear that part of the screen if you shoot that way. And if Jagged wouldn't be duplicating rockets, but always giving you a little bit of bullets on the side, that would mean that you could miss, or if you don't miss, you do less damage. So it would definitely make it less OP.
Oh yeah, well that's important. I I just thought it would only have to be the rockets that do that, but everything else can still work the same way.
Mm.
That would be a way to do. So
So in this phase, it might be interesting, to have our approach maybe in a way that we do when we do changes, that we just test it firstly for OP stuff, so that because I mean I guess OP is a thing that breaks the game and the fun the fastest. Because the challenge is gone, you have a screen clearing thing, and then the game
Well,
is gone.
I suppose the main issue is actually that you just get the OP thing at the start. If you get the OP thing in the end, or if you have to like fight a boss to get the OP thing, that would be cool. That would be like, yeah, I mean, Polyphemus exists in Isaac, and then you can get a lot of really good combos so that you can one shot the final boss. But then you don't have a shop where you can buy it every time at the start, like in the last encounter.
So then it might be a dependency with the starting armory, where it's simply you start out with too strong set of weapons.
Yeah, too many options, and then too little options during the game.
Yeah, I mean, but that's interesting. I mean, we haven't thought about. We wanted, there was the concept of giving the freedom to combine it and unlock it. But I mean, you might be right in terms of what if we, let's say, said, okay, these five things that you like the most or that give you the most firepower are the only ones that won't be available.
Oh, I got it actually.
Eh,
How about the starting shop gives you a silver version of the weapon that's like half as good, and then
mhm.
in the game you can find a gold version if you've unlocked it, or even if not, I guess maybe you have a small chance of finding it without having unlocked it.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's definitely an idea worth testing. A shop don't not having like the strongest version of the best components.
Yeah, make sure to yeah like a weakened version.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is crazy. I can't believe you're actually so open to all these suggestions.
Yeah, I mean I am because because we really when you do your best and you wrap your head around how to give a new concept to something and to make it fun, but if then it has certain combinations or systems that don't work yet, or that ruin the experience or ruin the idea. I'm grateful, when there's an idea that makes the concept better, and I think, as I said, we have a saying in Croatia that a man and a dog are smarter than just a man. So whenever you have a new set of eyes on something, and look at it from another angle, you might have a different idea that makes the whole thing better. So, and I think that, design in that way progresses better with more people. And I like, because your approach again to the subject is different, because you're really trying to decipher the issue and think of a thing that changes, while often if you just listen to players, they'll be able to say if it's good or if it's not good, but they're not be able to decipher the system on a level so they can suggest things that make it better.
Oh no, I'm the dog. Oh, are the players the dogs? I guess it's pretty interesting. Yeah, it's pretty hard to get good feedback, I guess, especially if you have a really small player base at the start.
But and the thing that you said, which is another thing where it's hard to get good feedback, is if you are as a developer standing next to people looking how they play, they probably, as you said, don't want to hurt your feelings. So it's no, it's
Yeah.
fine, it's really good, I really like it, and it helps nobody. It's just I mean I don't know how other developers
Well, it's
approach
tribalism,
it.
really. You can't say anything because you don't want to be kicked from the tribe or anything. You don't want to anger the leader,
But it's
even if it's just a game.
but it's weird because we're there, to make it better for the audience, and that's our wish. We don't want to make a game that's only good for you and me, so that us two can play it, on the weekends. We
Yeah.
really want to make something that people enjoy. But I guess, yeah, I guess people don't want to hurt your feelings, and it's hard for them to accept that you're not going to be hurt. You're just going to be grateful to get good feedback.
Oh man, I should hope that I'm not gonna turn out to make a really bad game in
Yeah,
Squiggle
maybe
Brothers, and then
maybe
it's like, oh, he's talked this much, and then his own game's this bad. Oh no, it's
if you
terrible.
if you said that you didn't show your what you're working on yet, right?
Oh yeah, it's a little secret still.
Yeah, maybe that's, the earlier you start to showing it to people, it might take you in a different direction. but it's again, I mean, we're always I have the feeling like the whole conversation when we're touching design subjects, it's between, finding the balance between, and in this case again, between maybe your vision and what the people you show it to want it to be, and finding the balance where in between is the best amount of both of those, both your vision but also having it be attractive to an audience.
It's actually really hard to change your vision based on what the audience says. In my case, I think I might just be too arrogant, and I might just come up with a different way rather than doing the way that the audience would tell me to. It's a real danger.
I know, and I remember when somebody's starting out with design, there's like when they look at a player playing something and they're not doing what the designer intended them to do, then having like a real frigid, um, like a real strong opinion in terms of like the player doesn't know what he has to do. And I'm always, thinking, is it that the player doesn't know, or can the designer do something better so that the player is aware of what he has to do? So it's the kind of the chicken and the egg, is it blaming the person for not playing it the right way, or does it need iteration for
Oh
it to
man.
be played in a way that it should be?
That stuff's really hard to say as well, because you got Dark Souls, which is basically the game that does tutorials and stuff the worst that you could imagine, but it has
Yeah.
such a niche following of people that are just so dedicated that they just worked around it, and they even put up with that incredibly bad port they put on PC. And then if you release a new indie game, you're not gonna get any of that of that
Hmm.
leeway that Dark Souls has gotten, because I guess there's a lot of competition, and if people aren't gonna be grabbed right away, they're gonna lose interest. And the question is, where do people, if people have given up on it, how do they come back? Because a lot of people have given up on Dark Souls, but then they came back because they heard their friends liked it, and it's just hard to tell. Did they make a real
There's
big mistake, or did
I
they just get lucky?
completely I completely understand what you're trying to say. I also I written an article for a regional like gaming magazine that's addressing the issue, and when I felt it most was when I bought the Nintendo Classic, and I booted up a couple of games on it, and there was no hand holding. So there was no, this is the control scheme, this is what you have to do, this is what you, and I guess when we were, little and starting out with games, you had one game, and how hard it was, or you didn't know what to do, there was no choice of, turning
Yeah.
turning it off. It was the one game, so you had to figure it out. You had to fail 1,000 times, but it wasn't a problem. And today, especially, with mobile coming in, with the casual and the audience growing based on games which are more, casual, not so core and not so difficult, and with onboarding and with better UX and with tutorials, we have a bigger audience, but it's a question of how easy or how accessible do you make a game. And today, is it a bad thing to make it less accessible? Because if people have a different choice of a more streamlined experience and less time to play, they simply might move on to the thing that's easier to grasp.
They might do that, but the thing is that these old games, they're actually also usually well designed. If you have the first Mario game, there's pretty much not much you can do wrong. You either learn to get over this Goomba, or you're gonna die to it, and then you know that you're gonna stomp on Goombas from now on. And
Mm,
it's just that these things are somewhat obvious, and the simplicity of the design makes it better. It's pretty hard to do that with a new idea like
yeah,
they did back in the day with Mario, I guess. But
yeah. And
there's a lot of
I
tricks
always
that
ask
work there
myself,
that way.
was it just the thing that it was the first of its kind, where it took a lot of, is it more like the time that you have to think about a certain problem, or is it more, this is simply the best solution for a certain problem? I'm not, like, I'm still not certain. And like,
Well,
if you would
it's
now
not
try to
even.
make a new type of genre, but you had you had the time and space of making it under the Nintendo umbrella. Would it be, better than if you had 1 year to do something new and you have to do it quick? I don't know if I'm getting my point across.
Well, so you think that the Nintendo umbrella has this monopoly that people will just give you a game another chance?
Oh, no, no, no. I meant it more in a design kind of way. When I was reading like how they were doing Breath of the Wild, it was like they started out, with a team of, I don't know, 50 people, and then they were working and they were working, and then they suddenly, realized, oh no, we need 100 people, and then there were 100 people working and working, and then they needed more people and 2 more years of time, and this it's a question of if if we're talking about indie developers, if this is something that people can do, or there's a time when you have to what you did, you have to put it out there, and you
Oh, you
cannot.
definitely need
Yeah.
to cut corners as an indie, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because some games are just too ambitious and they don't work out well, and then
Mm.
other games they're just, I guess they're just content with what they do.
But it's really hard for me to be kind of strict on indies because I know where it's coming from. It's a lot of passion and a lot of the need to express yourself, and I mean, it's not easy for indies these days. I think it's really hard for them if you put something out and it's not getting the reception, or your idea is not coming across. I guess it's hard for any creator or author to start, and have those types of experiences and how your baby is accepted.
Oh man, I have this huge fear that my new game won't be accepted at all, and then people won't play it, and then no one will know what they're missing. The
And how are
fools.
you emotionally preparing yourself for this? Do you have like you don't care, like because it's yours and you're like if they don't get it you don't care, or does it,
It's
is
my
it?
fault. Bas- Basically, it's all my fault because I didn't make any game after Binding of Isaac for like all of that time, and
Mm.
now I've just got this one game. But it doesn't even matter because if this one game fails, then I'll just make another game. Eventually, one of them will do fine. It's just I spent a lot of time learning the new stuff, the new 3D Unity,
Mm.
all of the effects that I'm working on. It's gonna be worth it for me anyways. If people play, that's just a bonus. But
I
I
think
guess it,
that's a really
I,
good attitude.
I guess it would be so cool though if I could just be make another game as big as Isaac, and then I could also get my YouTube channel to be really popular. Oh my god, that'd be the best.
Yeah, I guess it's how you define the success for yourself. Like what's the minimum thing that's just gonna keep you happy, and it's the best if it's just, finishing it. If just finishing it makes you happy, that's the greatest formula.
Well, it's not that there's an alternative. I mean, it's not cutting corners is what's gonna finish it. It's just working harder is gonna finish it in my case, because I guess I just got a motivation problem, a procrastination problem even.
Yeah.
So,
Do you not get to work on it as much as you, I don't know, imagine or plan to?
well, there's just so much cool stuff on the internet. And then I get
Distractions,
addicted to
distractions.
this game, and it's awful. It's too much stuff.
Yeah, yeah. That's another interesting talk about how the space is getting, filled up with so much content, not just game wise, but any type of content wise.
Yeah, it used to be real easy to get popular on YouTube, but now I can't even do it. And I should have some huge e-penis that allows me to get all of the audience. But I missed my chance, and now I can't make the content good enough
Yeah, yeah.
with YouTube. But my games will be great,
All of our games will be glorious.
the best. Alright, so I got a few more things I want to talk about in this game.
Hmm.
So, the way you switch between weapons is annoying to me because you need to press 1, 2, 3 to select the slot and then you have to scroll. And it would be more convenient to me if there was an option that would just make it so I just press 1 and then it switches 1. Because it's just one less button, I guess, even though you can't go the other way. I don't even know what
What
the
do
other
you
way is
what do you
because.
think about also an option maybe, because currently you only have that one setup and then you have to change every
Oh man,
component.
I was gonna say that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would definitely make another setup.
To have a button to be able, to switch between two setups.
And that's exactly what I was gonna say. Yeah, that would be great.
But then you would still need to invest the time to kind of make the setup.
Actually, no. If you just have a button to switch the setup,
Hmm.
then you have one setup that's all of the newest stuff that you've collected, and the other setup is just not that. So if you press the switch button, it goes to the other setup
Hmm.
that's empty. So all you need to do is press the switch button and then select your weapons, and then it switches back and forth between those.
It's on our list. It's on our list even before you said it.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really bothered me because I always thought, oh man, if only I could like, just make a quick shot and then also powerful shots so I can clear these annoying little blocks that take one bullet to kill.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess yeah, it's always a yeah. I know I'm not gonna start again with the philosophy. I'm not gonna eat like 2 hours into the video about philosophy.
Oh man, I'm sure. Only 1 hour in, don't worry. I'm nearly done with my list anyway, so I
Yeah, I
guess you're in
mean,
luck.
if you want us to go deeper into, how it's always with the control scheme, and when you do something that's familiar or has, if you have mechanics that you can take from a different game and you know that they worked, it's always a great design choice. And with this we had a lot of talks in the studio and tried different things and how can we streamline this better. And the last idea was exactly the one that you said, with being able to switch between certain things that you set up and then be able to use it in gameplay so that it's not annoying to invest so much input and clicks and button presses to do what you actually want to do.
Yeah, that's great. Another thing is maybe it should have been so you can like hotkey like one upgrade. I'm not sure if that would be worthwhile though. I guess there's still not even a screen where you can see all the upgrades at the same time, so I guess that's
We
for
added it
later.
yesterday.
No, I mean you only see one of the upgrades of each slot there. I mean each one of the all
Oh,
of
you
them.
mean the weapon components?
Yeah,
That you can see all of the inventory that you have?
yeah,
Yeah, that's also on the list.
of course.
It's
Well,
on the
that's
list,
good.
especially since I don't know if you had the chance to play it in co-op at all or just by yourself.
Oh, sorry, I'm a social hermit.
So, because there's then again the issue of, when you have more players and it's a shared inventory of components,
Oh
that we
yeah,
have to
that
show
might be
you what's
different
still
then.
available to be able to switch to it fast. So, I guess it is both an input and a UX, uh, UI type of issue.
Yeah, I don't even know how the multiplayer works. What if there's a shop? Can everyone get the same stuff, or do they have to share? Or
Everything in the shop is like one-off purchase.
so what if you buy two rockets? Can two players use rockets, or can all the
Yes,
players
they
use
can.
rockets
Yes.
anyways?
No, if you look at the weapon components, then a component is like an entity or an instance on itself. So if there's 4 players which have 2 rocket components, then 2 of them can use it and the other 2 guys can't. But if you put it in the inventory, like you're not using it, then the third player can use it. So you have a shared pool of components that any player can put onto their ship.
So you could just snatch it up when the other guy's not using it for a second.
Exactly, but that opens the problem. That opens the problem with the button for the swapping of the setups. Like, what if I
Damn.
took the rockets and your
Well,
second
you don't
setup
need
has the
that.
rockets? Yeah,
You don't need the button to switch the setup when you have multiple players, because then everyone has their setup. I guess.
but maybe they also wanna. It's maybe they also wanna be able to switch.
I mean, I guess
Yeah.
depends. Or maybe I guess that just means that you have all of the weapons that you have in your other setup in. They're actually still on you,
We might. I mean, one
but
solution
that
might
means
be.
that one player can hamster all the stuff. Oh no.
Yeah, but then the solution might be to not to give your inventory only to yourself, to that player, and then it's a matter of communication between you guys. Can you give me this? I want to use that. So you open a screen where there's like management
Well,
of
seeing how
okay,
it's local multiplayer, you can do all of the communication, anyways.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Well, that's cool, and I guess you're on the same page there then.
Yeah.
Except for the multiplayer, which I haven't played yet, of course.
It's the multiplayer has some different kind of you would think, okay, when there's two of us it will definitely, or three of us, we have more firepower, so it's going to be easier. But since there's more of you, there's more stuff going on the screen, and then if you don't communicate and one person goes in one way and the other person the other way, then it gets, it's almost like it gets harder when you
Oh
have
no.
more players. But we there is a revive option, so that whenever somebody dies, you can revive him if you're not shooting. So you have to clear the situation, go there, and then you can revive him. But you give up part of your health to give it to the other player. So every time somebody dies,
Oh
they're kind
man.
of dropping the shared pool of health, and they're also dropping a part of the money. So you have to go there, take the money that you don't lose it. So there's a nice interaction
Nah, that
between the players when
sounds
they play.
terrible. Oh my god. Man, I played the game Chicken Invaders. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. And that has a multiplayer, and it's so goddamn chaotic. And I played it over the internet, and it was fun.
How did you say it's called? Chicken Invaders?
Yeah, it's basically just a Space Invaders games with chickens as enemies. It's great. Oh yeah, that's pretty simplistic, but it's beautiful in its own way. Oh, what a game. From my childhood as well, but it still exists. There's new parts that came out, I guess, 10 years ago, so that's not too bad. Yeah, crazy. Alright, so another thing is the max shield. Oh, I guess the shield system is a great concept. I love how you got this regenerating shield, but if you go under, you lose health.
Hmm.
That way you can take a few hits, but then.
So you
You,
like it? I'm so happy that you say that.
yeah, it's a great system. The only issue is that the max shield upgrade is really good, and if you don't get it, your run will be annoying and painful because you're gonna lose health all the time.
I mean, yeah, that's a question again of maybe going back to how much of the randomness in a run we should control and not control.
Well, it
To
seems that that one's just particularly good, I
mm,
guess.
mm,
If you get like shield regeneration, I mean that pretty much doesn't. It's not noticeable, but then if you have that plus 25% shield, that's so massive. Or is it 15?
yeah, there was different percentages. We were changing it, so I don't know the last number. But yeah,
I think it's 50. It's
you could
really
max,
big.
or you could change three things about the shield. You can change how fast it's going to start to regenerate, how fast it regenerates, and the max amount that you have
I
on
think
the
the max
shield.
amount is the most relevant one. And then I saw that you get this new pilot that has like 20% more shield,
Mm.
more max shield, and that one's pretty good, I guess.
But now, what do you think about the progression in a way that you are unlocking the pilots and the ships, which we at least tried to make
Well,
the
it's
unlocked,
awesome,
yeah, in a
but
progression that give you a better starting position.
well, I suppose it's a problem though because when you start out the game, it's the hardest it's gonna be, and then you make it less hard the more you progress, and that seems like very counterintuitive.
Hmm.
It should get harder, not easier.
Hmm.
I guess maybe you have like you should have like an easy version of the last boss that looks different, and once you've beaten that, you can get to the real final one, and then I guess you also get some upgrades by beating him.
There is a thing that we were thinking about and planning and hoping to do it, is that since obviously we can track your progression and your unlocks and stuff, that we make the enemies and the galaxies adaptive in that way, that when you've reached a certain amount of strength, that we introduce new versions of enemies or scale up the enemies, but it's still we're still thinking about how to do it in a way that it's elegant, that it makes sense in terms of how the game works, but that you can have later on the same amount of challenge that you would have from the start.
Well, I suppose you'd make the start easy. I think the game's already pretty hard. I might be just the worst player ever, but I don't think I've ever beaten it without an OP combo.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have an OP combo, you go through the level fairly easily, but you can still get killed fairly easily as well.
Yeah.
It seems that everything is just really deadly, both you and the enemies.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you're weak, the enemies are just really hard to kill, obviously.
So your thought is that you should be starting out with having more space for mistakes, and then later on maybe getting to the stage where it's now.
Well,
Where
it's gotta
everything
be.
is, yeah.
Because right now it doesn't. I don't think it works. Because is it do you think it's realistic that someone will win the game on the first try?
On the first run with like
Yeah.
one component, no.
Well, it probably should be somewhat. There should be some goal that you can reach at least.
Mm.
It seems that just playing the game until the game decides now you can win. That seems. I mean, now you have a chance to win. It seems. Doesn't seem very game-like, I guess.
I'm not. I mean, I don't know. I understand what you mean, but I'm not. I'm not sure how to apply it. Like, if I think of any of those types of games, you know, where you have a progression system in terms of the player getting stronger, we could call it levels, but we don't have to. I mean, a level in stats only means you have more of something. So if I look at most of the games, and when you take, you know, like the starting player or the starting character in strength, he wouldn't have a chance against the final boss. So it's hard for me to wrap around what you mean when you say, you know, the chance
But
with
that's not
starting
how
out.
roguelikes work. Because in a roguelike, yeah, of course you're not going to have a chance with the starting level, but the thing is that during the game you get stronger. But in this game you only get temporary upgrades, I guess, component-wise. I mean, there's some damage upgrades, yeah, but you're still not going to beat the boss. I guess if you speed run the Binding of Isaac from a new account, you're going to beat Mom. It's not going to be a problem. You're going to find stuff that upgrades, and if you know how to beat the boss, you can beat it. Can you say the same about Last Encounter?
Um, it's a good question. I think from the numbers, it is possible to have a completely new run, to
No,
pick
I
up
mean
a
likely,
pilot, a
not
ship.
just possible. I mean, it shouldn't just be based on luck.
But it's again, isn't
Well,
that just a question of, you know, I don't think that I don't mean that it's luck. If you take a pilot, the starting pilot, the starting ship, a starting weapon, and you start playing, there is enough of drops in the galaxies of weapons and upgrades that you can beat the whole game. But it's
wow,
really, really,
really
really unlikely.
unlikely after all.
Yeah.
Unlikely that you beat the game because of skill or because of drops.
It should be a combination of both.
Well,
Because if it isn't, then it would mean that the starting player and the starting ship are basically not any weaker than anything that you unlock, isn't it? And maybe I'm looking at it
well,
wrong.
they wouldn't have. I mean, they shouldn't necessarily have to be. Well, are you saying that the starting stuff is just unplayable then? I guess it's not that bad, but it's supposed to get harder, not easier. That's the thing. You're supposed to increase the challenge by playing it, and not decrease the challenge.
I from the player experience, I completely. Well, I'm not sure actually. I mean, the amount of challenge that you have is always needs to be certain amount as your experience the same. It's that your skill
But
set, that you were getting better at the game,
yeah, of course.
means that even when I raise the challenge mathematically for you playing it, it's the same challenge when you started out. Like you would
Yeah,
die
but
in the
that's the
first.
opposite of what's happening because you're making it easier by adding all these early game upgrades that you can buy.
It might be a solution might be in the thing that you suggested with the OP stuff not being available from the start.
Well, that's one solution, but I mean that's an overall improvement, but that's not an improvement towards the new player because the new player is thrust into a game that he's very, very unlikely to win. And the thing is that that makes that game pointless because you can't win it.
You mean in the first run?
Yeah,
You
you
think it
should
should be
always
you
be
think it
able to
should
win.
be able to win it in the first run?
I mean, I suppose in your case it's a bit different because there isn't like a lot of new levels that get unlocked behind the final boss, but
Hmm.
there needs to be a win scenario for sure because if you can't win the game, what's the point of the game? There needs to be
Well,
some kind
I
of
mean, I think it's really interesting you're saying it because from all of the, let's say from all of the roguelites and roguelikes that I've played, even if there would be a chance of that, practically it was always impossible. Like I would always die after, 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes if it's the first time
but
that I'm
that's
trying
because you're
it.
lacking the skill. It's not because the game is harder than it ever is.
Exactly, but then the question isn't um, then you can be able to beat the game on the first run, but only if you've played thousands of runs.
Well, not thousands. That's why there's an easier boss the first time round in Isaac at least. I don't know. I guess in
But
I
maybe,
guess
but
in
mhm.
Gungeon there's a different boss, but then I guess you have to do. Oh yeah, I guess you can't get the final boss on the first run, but then you get somewhat of a final boss, and that's something. But I guess it's pretty unlikely to win because that game is. I guess I just don't like it. The way you switch weapons is really annoying to me.
Mhm.
So, too many weapons, and they're all equally useless, and they run out of ammo. But I think,
Maybe. Maybe, do you think that there might maybe be the problem then with the armory, not just because of the OP components, but because you have all those things possibly at the start? Maybe it would be
well, that's
different.
definitely a
Yeah.
problem, but that's not the problem I'm talking about now. The
Hmm.
problem I'm talking about now is that the game becomes easier the more you play it. In Isaac, the game doesn't become easier the more you play it. It gets harder. You beat Mom like 5 times, and then it unlocks an achievement that's called Everything is Terrible, and now the chance of enemies that have more health is increased. The special enemies that appear. It's not. The real hard stuff comes after you've played the game a few times, but you can still win the game the first time around if you play it well enough.
And you feel like that isn't true for Last Encounter?
Well, I guess I might just be terrible, but it definitely gets easier, so that's definitely not how it should be.
Hmm. Hmm.
So can you just open a new game and win it without any upgrades?
It's a good question. I mean, I haven't done it, but I haven't tried it.
I mean, this isn't a late game thing. This is can you win the game on the first run? And this is specifically changes to make the first run more enjoyable because right now it's just gonna seem impossible. And it's not just impossible because the final boss is not beatable to you
Hmm.
because you don't have the upgrades, but it's also impossible. It's also harder for you than it should be because you don't have any permanent upgrades. I guess if you don't have any permanent upgrades, that's a little better in the end. Any
But
any starting
could you
upgrades.
if we're not having this only in a kind of theoretical approach, but could you pick up any of the, let's say, roguelikes that you've played yourself and start it up, like reset the progress, have nothing in the game, and complete it on the first run?
Why? I don't see why not. There's nothing that
No,
gets
no, no. But I don't
easier.
think theoretically. I mean, like, did you ever do it in a game that you
Well, the
know the
thing
ins
is,
and
I don't
outs?
like to reset the data on Isaac, but I think well, the chance of me winning that game is pretty good because it doesn't even go all the way. You know, there's, I don't know, I guess there's like 9 levels, but it only goes up to 6 the first time
Hmm.
around. And it doesn't have all of that horror that comes afterwards. It's not, yeah, I think I could probably beat Mom pretty easily.
But for you, it feels like we shouldn't. Hmm. But that sound isn't that like just maybe content locking at a certain stage of
Well, it
your
is, but
ability?
the thing is that there is a situation that you can get in.
And you don't regard a win situation as, let's say, in Last Encounter, beating the first or the second boss. You don't feel in
Well,
that you
those don't
achieved
even show
something.
up randomly. They
Mm.
only show up randomly, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I guess the game continues. It's not really a win situation. It's not a game ending situation, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I guess it's hard to tell.
No, no, no. It's. I really like how your thoughts on it are very, very different of what you regard as being a win or something that you've achieved. So, I think it's a really
I
interesting
mean,
point to make.
I guess it's a point where the game says you've done as good as you possibly could have under the circumstances. And if the game says, oh, well, you beat the boss, but oh, look, there's another level full of horrible monsters that you can't defeat.
Is
It's
it
probably
but
not
is
the
it then
same.
only on a psychological level for you as a player to be told you've done really good,
But,
regardless of the progression? You
well, I
know
mean,
what I mean?
this is all very theoretical because I
Yeah, yeah,
probably
of
wouldn't
course.
beat the game on the first time. In your case,
Hmm.
I'm really bad at the last encounter, I guess. But it just, I guess it's hard to tell. Well, I guess there's just no reason why the game would be as hard. Why it would be hardest on the first run. That's all, I
Hmm.
guess.
Okay. Yeah,
I
no, no,
guess that's
I'll
one
take that
thing.
as a comment.
But I guess having the as a compliment. Oh man. Well,
No, no, I'll write it down
oh,
as a
okay.
comment to
Oh,
kind of
okay.
be aware of. But isn't no, no, it seems that I might have here a problem in looking at it or
you,
a different type of
you might
because
be right about the
because
bossing,
I
but
never feel when I start a new game that I don't know nothing about. Like when I play the first level of it, it's gonna be the hardest time ever that I play it.
yeah, I know. But you're gonna make it even harder by actually making it the hardest time ever. Do you see? And that makes it really
You think that you
frustrating for
think that
new
it
players.
should the difficulty of certain progressions should scale with the progression of the player.
Definitely, yeah. I guess you could unlock new enemies or something, or make the enemies bigger, or I
Oh,
guess anything.
that's I mean, if we touch on now concrete solutions, that is definitely something that we were thinking about adding soon. Of let's say if you beat the Dark Galaxy, the first one, I don't know how many number of times, but you're fairly now aware of the concept of how it works and how the enemies work, to introduce, upgraded versions of the enemies who look different and who have different behavior that is familiar for you because you already saw them, but now they're stronger. So they're either faster or they do more damage or it takes you a longer time to kill them. So to make the game or the galaxies aware of how where you've been, how what your skill is, and then make up the challenge a little bit.
Well, I think that's definitely a good thing
Hmm.
if it was that way. But I gotta tell you, I don't think I could beat this game without the OP weapons. So I'm not sure if you'd be doing me any favors by making it even harder from this point.
Hmm.
So I don't know.
Hmm.
You might have to do some play testing there if it's actually doable for most people.
Yeah, and that's also it's also really, I guess it's hard to test for us, or maybe I had the wrong approach with it when you think about it now. Because if I can now say, yeah, I mean the first galaxy is ultra easy, but I'm not anyone to talk about it, because I've beat it so many times that it's yeah. But
What do you mean when you start the game over without upgrades? It's ultra easy.
Yeah, but I guess it comes from the
I mean, I
experience
guess
with
to
it.
me as well, but well, I guess I don't know because I usually just have good weapons, so I don't even have to engage with it much. I
But
just kill it
let's if you
immediately.
don't mind, can we keep talking a little bit more about this because I want to see how you think
Sure.
about this concept. Is let's say how would you if we don't take the whole game or the whole progression system, but we take the first level and we take the character that you have, your level of skill and your abilities, how would you if you let's say you die 5 times or 10 times or 100 times, how would you approach that of making it then even harder? Shouldn't it be easier
Oh,
for
that's
you?
easy.
Hmm.
You just make it that it gets harder each time you achieve something, like beat a boss or something.
But yeah, but my because it seems like we're
I,
thinking of
I
two
mean
different
something that you
ways.
haven't achieved yet.
But
So it
shouldn't it get easier for you, not harder to beat it?
no, because it gets easier by you getting the skills. You don't want to make it even easier by also making it easier.
Hmm. Yeah, that's an interest. I feel like we have different, but I'm not saying that, I'm totally open. I wrote it down, so I'll definitely ponder upon it more and talk to the guys to see.
Yeah, I
Maybe, I
wonder
don't
what
know.
they think of this. they might
Because
get
I
outraged at
never,
me.
I never thought about it. Now when I'm like shuffling all the games that I play, I always feel like, when the more I play it, the start is always gets easier.
Yeah, the start gets easier, but I mean that's why you might want to make the start harder, I guess, at that point,
Maybe, yeah.
and not
Yeah.
even easier.
Okay. I mean, wow. We got to some really tough questions.
Yeah,
Mind-bending stuff.
this has got some real exclusive interview here. It's real good. I guess I don't have many more issues. It's just the green smoke on level 2. There's toxic one and there's not toxic one, and they only look slightly different
Hmm.
by these skull particles. I guess it might be better if they would fade away fast if they're not toxic. But then
Hmm.
again, you don't know. I guess that would make it not obvious that they're not toxic. Then, I guess that one's a hard one to make that one
But probably
more
would be
obvious.
really easy if we did the non-toxic ones in a different color.
Well, that would be easy, but it might not be as beautiful. And then I guess you have these indestructible things that keep shooting poison bullets.
Hmm.
I don't know how I feel about indestructible traps that are actually really squishy looking.
Are you thinking of the poison galaxy with the spikes,
Yeah,
or are you thinking
yeah, that's
about the
that.
spikes or the ones that the kind
Uh,
of that spit the
the
poison
ones that
zones?
shoot. Yeah,
Mm.
I mean the spikes as well. I guess they annoyed me very much, but then I realized I could not throw them.
Oh, the ones that shoot. You mean like I think we removed those.
There's a spinning one and there's oh you removed them. Why didn't you just
We
make them destructible?
we removed. Well, maybe we're not talking about the same. There were three mechanics in the Green Galaxy. One was the really small ones that spit darts that do a lot of damage, and you could not destroy the source of those darts spitting. Then the second one
Did you
were,
remove them?
and we removed those, yeah, because people didn't seem to.
But
They
now
were
there's still ones that shoot bullets. I mean, like orbs that turn into poison.
Okay, you mean, yeah, I know which one you mean. Okay, so you would like to be able to destroy those?
I think that would be intuitive because they really look destructible.
Hmm.
And
It
the
might
same
be
one for the
actually.
the spinning ones.
It might be actually that currently, when I think about it, that maybe the spikes and the spinning ones are the only undestructible. So that maybe from a
I'm
design
pretty
point
sure
doesn't
that
make
the
sense.
ones that just shoot straight balls are also indestructible.
Also in the Green Galaxy.
Yeah,
Okay.
they I guess they're the same balls, but they don't spin.
Mm-hmm.
But then I guess you have these lasers in the next one that also are indestructible. I guess they're not that annoying though.
Where do you draw your line for stuff that should be destructible and shouldn't be?
I don't know, maybe it should just be really hard to destroy for those crystal ones.
But do you feel like you should always be? You know how in games you
Well,
have
it's
like
just that it
flamethrowers or
looks
something that
like it should be
it
destructible.
looks
Then
okay, okay, yeah, okay. That's a good comment.
it's hard to tell, I guess. How would you make something look that's not destructible? Hard to tell.
Yeah, but
Or maybe
yeah.
it's like a flower that grows back. That might be a way to do it.
Oh, how do you then also feel about the little lattices that if something hits them, they put out a poison cloud, but they
Oh,
can't be
those
destroyed?
ones. Well, I guess you can go around them. At least they don't shoot, and the way they shoot is blocking your way.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, I guess those are fine.
It's interesting. We had also, I mean, it's really interesting how players perceive things differently. When we had a lot of comments on the gravity zones that
Oh yeah,
changed the
those are
bullet
really
direction.
annoying. But
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that you're not gonna remove those because you're probably married to the idea.
we changed the kind of the force that they do, and we made them more visible in the first update in the first week. But it was I mean it's hard to find the balance between if you look at other types of top-down games where you would even get, you know, like holes in the floor, which if you walk over them, you're dead or you lose half of the health points. Then we thought like we're not even having such strong mechanic of that punishes a mistake, but it seems that I don't know, maybe it isn't, maybe it breaks immersions or
Well, for
it's
one
hard to
thing, it doesn't
accept.
make sense because you don't have gravity. So why would you have gravity only in this part? And I mean, it also doesn't kill you, which is something that a real black hole would do, which is also another thing that doesn't make sense.
Hmm.
And then they're also really annoying to, when you're in them. I guess I got used to it, but another thing that's just annoying for starting out players are these black holes. I guess it's quite tragic because
You
you
think
probably like
it's
the concept a
more of
lot.
not being, you know, in the theme. Like if it's
Well,
a black hole, it should
well,
kill me. If it shouldn't be annoying. If it's, you think it's like a hit and miss in terms of what you expect of the level, how it works.
well, I suppose, yeah, I guess that's for sure. But also, it just, I guess if it, I guess it accelerates you faster and you can go yourself, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then that seems odd. I guess it's just not too consistent with the rules, but then it's in the first level, so I guess you're trying to make it consistent with the rules, just so you can use it more on the third level.
But that's an interesting idea. Maybe, you know, putting it only somewhere later
Well, then he wouldn't know how to deal with it then. It needs to be, I guess,
introduced.
shown.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess there's nothing we can do about these. I guess we're just gonna. Maybe. I guess maybe they become. No, I guess they can't become more common because then you wouldn't be. You wouldn't know what to do with them on the third level.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite.
Yeah, it's challenging.
I mean, I guess unless you remove both the black holes and the enemies that make them until you've, I guess, unlocked the higher difficulty of the game.
Yeah, that might make sense.
But it seems like actually, I guess if you remove those things, the levels wouldn't be incredibly unbalanced by it. It might be
What do you
interesting to see
think
it that way.
now there's an idea of when you said, you know, that progression shouldn't mean a harder level for you, the rise of the challenge. What if we like took from the first couple of galaxies because you play them the most because you always start from the first one, like we remove a couple of the mechanics. So it makes it easier for you to, you know, go through them the first time. And then over time those mechanics get introduced to you in making the levels more challenging. So they kind of remove the feeling that you have that it gets easier, but it doesn't. It's easier at the start, and then later on, things start to. But I don't know. Would you feel like that's unfair that it gets introduced, you know, new mechanics?
Well, the question is it good? Because if you have a really easy first level and then the players get through and then they come to like level number 4 and it's super hard, that's not good either. So you'd have to make the whole game easier in the first run, or you limit the game so it can only go to that level in the first run.
Yeah, but that's definitely an option.
So a lot of choices. I guess
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
yeah, just making the first level could be interesting. The first ones. Okay, I got one last point. We made it almost, and this
Mm-hmm.
point's not even a big problem. It's the resolution. What resolution do you play on?
Full HD.
Is that 180?
Yeah.
Well, on I guess I got 144p,
Mm-hmm.
1440,
Mm-hmm.
and the text gets small. It's really hard to read. You might wanna have a slider to make like most of the HUD things bigger.
Is it? Is it? Have you? Oh yeah. I mean, you've taken a look at the yesterday's version since you commented with me, but
Did you make it bigger?
we know, but we changed all of the we upgraded the components that display the text to have a better fidelity. But if you still feel that if it's only size and not quality of the text, then we could definitely take a
I
look at
didn't
it.
notice anything wrong with the quality, but it is just a few pixels, so who could have told?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've played a bunch today and yesterday, so I saw that one, but I guess I didn't notice any big difference with the text.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it obviously gets progressively smaller the larger your screen size is,
Mm-hmm.
and also the crosshair's not always easy to spot.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if you have a slider for that being bigger or a different color, that might be convenient too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely something that should be done to make the experience better. Okay, so I'll write myself down the note to take a look and make the UI and text bigger on smaller resolutions.
Well, maybe just an option for it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I'm sorry that this sounded like I had so many problems with this game, but I guess I just enjoy the opportunity to tell you all about them.
But
And
I'm really glad you did. I mean, I feel much more, appreciated when you do that than just, give a pat on the back and say it's really good.
I know, right? I really got into this game. I know all of the details, don't I?
Yeah, and I think I hope that it means that there was things in it that you really liked. So there's like potential for us, to make it even better.
Yeah, it can definitely be improved a lot. And I guess it's already worth its asking price because I played it for like I think 20 hours. I haven't checked, but it felt like 20 hours.
Wow, awesome.
Yeah, I went crazy, but I guess it's still hard for me though. The game. Maybe I'm just getting too old. I just get destroyed so easily.
I think so far, from what I've looked, I think one of the guys in the community has 130 hours or something like that. I
Oh,
think
it
that's the
shows you.
most yet. I think that's the most yet from the players that I know.
Oh wow. Let's find out how much I have. Oh, last 17 hours. All right. I guess I
Well,
was
that's
pretty
that's
close.
pretty good.
Yeah, 17.
For how I'm playing games, although it's different, I guess, for people who only play or for people who make games. If a game gets to 17 hours for me, that's like something really good. It really got me.
Oh,
Usually I
I
end up
play.
only on a couple of hours.
I get really addicted to games. But I guess yeah, well, I guess no, I'm still in love with games, and the only times I don't play games for 20 hours is when they're a story that's really short
Hmm. Hmm.
and it's like story based. But yeah, I really like to play games, of course.
So then your completion rate is good. You finish the things you start.
Yeah, usually I even finish fucking Enter the Gungeon. That game is really unpleasant to play to me. I don't even get how that got so popular. So everyone should check out this game. It's highly underrated and it's almost as good as Enter the Gungeon.
Yeah, but kudos to you on finishing the games. My library is only getting bigger and the playtime is getting smaller.
It's too busy making games. How could you? No, I should get more busy making games. If only I could. I guess
Mm.
maybe a little bit after this.
Yeah, yeah. Now after all of the talks, of what can be done better, maybe you'll have some ideas for yourself as well. Who knows?
Yeah, we got a really similar weapon system, except for I guess you can't switch it out. Whatever you get, you have permanently.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's really interesting to see a game with very similar weapons.
Yeah.
We even got one that's called Trident
Mm-hmm.
and one that's called Shotgun. And I guess I got rifles. I don't know if you've got rifles, but I guess you've got assault rifle and then sniper. So
Mm-hmm.
that's things that exist.
But then it's also good. This is a good example for you to see like any pitfalls to avoid.
Well, it's very different though because it's just like I guess that's a vibe. I guess the enemies come to you and you don't have to explore the level.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to defend the city from the aliens, the space squids.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I guess somewhat a different game and it's more of an actual roguelike, I guess. And
Mm-hmm.
yet it doesn't have a generated level. But I'm planning to do a campaign later that has a generated level, and I guess that'll be interesting. I really like the way you generated the. I mean the rooms themselves they look really good. I don't know if they're generated or if they're like pre-made.
It's mostly an approach from what you would find in Spelunky, where we take certain elements that we pre-designed and then say, okay, these things need to be, based on your progression or the story. They need to be here, but then the rest is a pool of also kind of situations that we modeled that then get stacked upon each other by different factors, which also could be because we can also measure. We have, let's say, we call it a threat factor, where we can say how challenging a certain situation is. So this is also something over time where we could say, okay, when you're starting out, let's build your galaxy out of the threat level 1 situations. And then when you get for 20th time into a galaxy, now use the higher threat level situation, so it will be more challenging for you the longer you play. It will be the same mechanics, but it will be
Oh, is it that way already?
it's the system for it is getting ready, but it's not yet there yet.
Wait, are you saying you've got the same elements between galaxies?
The same elements between galaxies? I'm not sure I got your point, sorry.
Is that the same, like stone formation or something can show up in any galaxy, or is that specific to each one?
It's specific to each galaxy.
Right, so I guess that's the only thing. Then it just picks a random amount of those from each galaxy, or do they
Yeah,
have
there's a
different
pool of
versions of them?
situations that were handcrafted, and then they get picked and put into randomized sectors.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I guess I do see repeating structures, but it's still somewhat different. But then again, maybe I don't pay enough attention to remember the way it was anyways. I guess it's a cool looking system and it works well. The level design.
That's good to know. Thank you. I'll give the guys a kudos.
Very good. Yeah, I guess I had some good points and some
Cool,
bad
cool. I'm really
points.
happy we went over the stuff, especially since, what I'm happy with is that most of the things we talked about are things that can be, tweaked and changed to try to make the experience better. I'm happy that we didn't, or at least you were so kind not to point them out, find any issues that really kind of put the concept down. Maybe you've seen them, but yeah, as I said, you're kind enough
Yeah,
not to
I
mention
can't
them.
think of much. It's just that I guess I don't know if it's possible to have another last boss in the story because it seems that the story is pretty much just ended. I don't know. Are you gonna add more levels afterwards?
Let's say that as we communicated in the first weekly patch, like there's three levels of importance that we look at. The first one, obviously, technical issues, like if you have bugs or crashes that we want to take out of the way. Then the second one would be balancing UX and UI to, as mostly we talked about now, the both of us, I think, here. And once we have that in a situation where we feel this is really good, then we would definitely keep adding on content so that you can have a good experience with this, let's say a certain amount of hours, but then that you have new content or new challenges that you can go to and feel like, oh, there's more for me to find, there's more for me to challenge, there's more for me to explore.
Yeah, I guess just adding more content will be
But we
pretty
just haven't
interesting.
come
You
yet to
can
the point where we would be adding more content right now.
you can make alternate galaxies that are replacing certain current galaxies at
Oh,
random, and make it more interesting that way. I
did
guess.
we did,
Hmm?
did our connection broke? I didn't hear you, Florian, sorry.
Oh, I said
I
random
didn't
new
hear you, sorry. Maybe the
galaxies.
connection broke.
You hear me now?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's definitely, there's potential for random new galaxies. There's potential for different game modes. We even thought about, but I don't know if it would be interesting. We have like a big list of what we could be doing, and then there's maybe, give you the chance to kind of tweak certain things if you want to try out, or if you want to have like modifiers that you can put on to almost like something towards a workshop where you could change maybe the situations, or you could change, or you could say, make me a galaxy that has more sectors with only threat level 5, or to give kind of the option that. But it's still a high concept of thinking what else we could do and give more content inside of the game.
Yeah, I guess that's gonna be interesting. Oh, I guess oh, here we go. We're back.
Oh, you're back.
I guess the TeamSpeak server was having issues. My internet seems fine. Anyways, well, it was very nice talking to you about all these things, and I like the game, and I'm looking forward to what's gonna happen next. And
Thank
people
you.
should definitely play the game.
Thank you very much. Thank you for taking the time, and thank you for having such a deep look into all of the challenges and into the design. I'm really happy that we had, this space to be able to talk about it for 2 hours. Uh, yeah, yeah. Thank you very much, and I hope more people will enjoy Last Encounter.
Oh wow, it was almost 2 hours. Well, sorry that I took up so much time, but it was certainly good. Goodbye, everyone.